Your Bibles this morning, turn to Genesis 12. Start reading the first two verses, Genesis 12. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, from thy kindred, from thy father's house, into the land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, make thy name great, thou shalt be a blessing. Here the Lord tells Abram to leave his country, go to the land that he will show him. The Lord tells Abram he'll make a great nation out of him. So Abram heads out, gets to what is Canaan. It says in verse 7. And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land, and there builded he an altar unto the Lord, who appeared unto him. So Abram stops, calls this place his new home, right? He's going to stay there, and he's good, because that's where the Lord told him to go, and now he's there. The Lord said, this is it. Tells him, he's going to go to the place where he will show him, make him a great nation out of him. But when Abram got to Canaan, you notice the end of verse 6, it says, and the Canaanite was in the land. Go figure. Canaan. So I assume, Abram noticed the Canaanite. I don't think the Bible mentioned this on accident. And Abram just, he makes an altar, but continues south, it says. And I assume he feared the Canaanites and just wanted to keep moving on. Then we read in verse 10, there was famine in the land. So Abram turned around and went back to Canaan, where he should have been, right? He had made the altar? No. He said, let's go to Egypt. How about that? What could go wrong there? We read in verse 11 and 12, and it came to pass, when he was come near to enter into Egypt, he said unto Sarai, his wife, Behold, now I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. As they're heading to Egypt, he realizes his wife is pretty good looking. He cooks up a lie to save his own behind because the Egyptians would kill him, or so he assumes for Sarai. May be wrong, but I didn't read anywhere the Lord told Abram to leave Canaan, where he told him to stop, and say, Okay, Abram, this is the land I'm going to give you and make a great nation out of thee. So just keep on going, because there are Canaanites here, and they're kind of scary. I also did read, Abram praying where to go when there was famine, or the Lord, telling him, all right, move on over to Egypt. I also noticed it says he sojourned. That means he was going to hang out there. He didn't go just to grab some food and come back. I think Abram was making these decisions based on his circumstances, his sight, and I definitely know the Lord didn't tell Abram to make a lie as they were heading into Egypt. And go to verse 14 through 16. It came to pass that when Abram was come into Egypt, as he figured, the Egyptians beheld the woman that she was fair. The princes also, Pharaoh saw her, commended her before Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And he entreated Abram well for her sake. Sheep, oxen, he asses, men servants, maid servants, she asses, and camels. So Abram figured the Egyptians thought she looked good, and he was right. And Pharaoh gives him a bunch of gifts to have her, basically. And Abram readily received those gifts. And instead of saying, no, Pharaoh, you can't buy my wife. This is actually my wife, she's not my sister. Sorry. No, he doesn't say anything, he just accepts it all. And seems like Abram just said, oh, well, thanks, Pharaoh. Sweet. Yeah, he didn't argue or anything, just I'll see you, Sarah. And then the Lord figures this out, as the Lord rains down plagues on his house until somehow, someone alerts him, this is why. I'm assuming Sarah. And she's living there and in the house that the plagues are being rained on. And it's probably like, yeah, this is the reason this is happening. In verse 18-19, Pharaoh says, Abram, what's wrong with you? Why didn't you just tell me she was your wife, not your sister? I was going to take her to be my wife. So, not only because of the Lord's mercy, I believe, does Pharaoh not kill Abram here. Certainly could have made up a lie, caused his house to have a bunch of plagues put on it. And after giving him all the stuff he did. And, seeing all this, you don't see Abram go to Pharaoh and say, my bad, I'm really sorry, Pharaoh, most likely the lost man, has to give Abram a moral lesson here. Here's your wife, and he tells him, here's your wife, keep the stuff, and go. And reading in chapter 13, the beginning here, Abram leaves with all the stuff, doesn't give it back, although doesn't deserve it either. He's a very wealthy man, still has his life, still has his wife, and heads back now to where he was supposed to be. And there, called on the name of the Lord. It says in 3 and 4, and he went on his journeys from the south into Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hai, unto the place of the altar, which he had made there at the first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. Abram did what we and me as Christians do all the time. The Lord tells us to do something, go somewhere. By faith he did. He left his family, where he was established, and immediately obeyed. But along the way, start looking around and seeing Canaanites. We forget the Lord's promise that he's going to make him a great nation. So the Canaanites are going to kill you, Abram. I'm going to make you a great nation. Remember that part. And then another obstacle will arrive, like you get hungry, and you think, well, Canaan's nice and all, Lord, but Egypt's got food. On the way to Egypt, we think, well, Egypt's going to be awesome, but I'm going to have to do something, about my hot wife here, and don't want to get hurt or be uncomfortable, so we'll cook up a lie. But the Lord, being merciful, still blesses, gets us out of Egypt with our life and our wife. And in Abram's case, a pretty wealthy guy. So we go back to where we should be, repent, wipe the bead of sweat from our brow, and say, thank you, Lord. We get back to where we should have been all along. But we don't always realize that although it appears we were no worse for the wear, our time in Egypt and what we brought back had consequences that might not be seen for some time. Flip over to chapter 16. Verse 1 says, now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children. And she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. In verse 4, he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. She saw that she had conceived. Her mistress was despised in her eyes. So Hagar, maidservant given to Abram from Pharaoh, while he was in Egypt, is taken to wife by Abram 10 years later. 10 years. And I imagine over those years, you start to forget about Egypt. Wasn't even there. But some things come back, right? And we know how well this all works out to this day. Descendants of Abraham, not so great. So Abram got right, went back to where he was supposed to be, but he took some Egypt with him. And the repercussions of not being where he should have been were not only felt by him, but even much more by his descendants even to this day. And this is speculation on my part, but I think, there's mountain evidence suggesting Abram should have left all those things in Egypt that Pharaoh gave him. and just asked Pharaoh to forgive him, possibly save his testimony. And thousands of years of strife in the Middle East there. The application here is pretty straightforward. Be where God tells you to be, and if you fail, end up where you shouldn't be, as we all do, then repent and get back where you should be, but be very careful what you bring back from Egypt with you. Even if there's nothing wrong about the things themselves, as in Abram's case, it's livestock, servants, nothing wrong with those things. But he did obtain those things through lying from a place I don't believe God let him be in the first place. So be where God tells you to be. Stay there until God tells you to leave. And leave Egypt in Egypt.